Hi, this is Dave Kahle. I want to talk to you about systems in business today. I believe that we are living in unprecedented times. Now, when I say that, what I mean is I believe that things are changing today so rapidly that it's unprecedented. There's never been a generation of people, a generation of business people, who have had to live through an economic environment that is changing as rapidly as the environment is today. We are the first generation, the history of mankind, that's had to deal with the pace of change going as rapidly as it does today. Don't take my word for it. Let me give you some evidence for that. What's happening is this: we're creating more and more information, and as we create information, it seeps into every aspect of our industries, our economy, our companies, our lives, and it causes change. And so there's a direct relationship between change and the increase in information. Now, in 1900, for example, there's a measurement called the total amount of information available to mankind. And it was estimated in 1900, at the beginning of the last century, that it was doubling every 500 years. That was in the year 1900, our grandparents' and great grandparents' lifetime. Fast forward to the end of the century, in the year 2000, it wasn't taking 500 years for information to double. It wasn't taking 400 or 300 or 200 or 100 or 80 or 60 or 40 or 20 or 10 or 8 or 6 or 4. It was taking 2. We went from 500 years to 2 years in the last century. Just imagine the pace of change in the year 1900 and compared to the pace of change in the year 2000, and it's directly proportional to the amount of information we create. Now today people are saying, estimating that the pace of change, information is doubling about every 30 days. Now can you imagine? And we see this all around us. We see things changing so rapidly today. We create a brand new product, the latest and greatest, and 6 months later, it's not so late and great anymore. Somebody's got something better, cheaper, and on it goes with everything. It just seems like nothing is stable. Things change rapidly, and frankly, that is the way it is. I mean, that's just the nature of things today. There's a great book called Margin by Dr. Richard Swenson. He said this: the spontaneous tendency of our culture is to inexorably add detail to our lives. One more option, one more problem, one more commitment, one more expectation, one more purchase, one more debt, one more change, one more job, one more decision. We must now deal with more things per person than at any other time in history. I don't know about you, but that's my world. Is that your world? It's mine. Now, you know what's really incredible about this quote? This book was written in the year 2000. Imagine. Things are just going multiply faster, not incrementally, multiply faster. So we're in an unprecedented time, and so we need to do things differently. We need to attack this rapidly changing, overwhelming world and with a different set of paradigms and attitudes and different mindset. How do we do it? Well, I believe this. I believe the only sustainable, effective response to a rapidly changing world is cultivating the ability to positively transform ourselves and our organizations. And that takes the form of creating systems for the most important tasks in our business. Systems. Yeah, I think an effective response for a business executive, for an entrepreneur, business owner, to a rapidly changing world is to systematize your business. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that gradually, over the next 12 months, you create systems for every major process within your business. That's what it means. I believe that is an effective response to a world that is changing rapidly, where your business may be growing very rapidly, things are changing. You need to have a response. That's it. Now, why do I think that? Well, over the years, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've observed this issue, that when you change the structure, you change the behavior of the people who operate within that structure. So if you want to get greater performance from all your people, the first thing to do is to change the structure under which they operate. Let me give you a couple examples. One from a macro world and one from a micro world. So from the macro, 10,000 foot high view. During the Cold War, there were two competing entities in this world. We had the USA and the USSR. Now, looking at it objectively, the populations of both were, about the same. The dispersion of skills and aptitudes and gifts were about the same. The natural resources were about the same, but yet one of those two entities had a far greater production, far greater development of human freedom and expression, artistic expression, economic prosperity, and so on than the other. What was the difference? The system. See, the structure of the system, the way the system was designed. In one, it allowed people to flourish, in the other, it held them down. The system dictates the people, the behavior of the people who operate within that. Now, that's on a macro system. Let me give you an example on the micro system. For years, my wife and I were foster parents. We bring foster children into the home, and I'd watch this phenomena. And that is, a kid would come into our home and they'd be upset. They come from terrible situations for the most part, and they're out of control. They're emotionally upset. And I would watch my wife impose a system. Day one, here's your bedroom, and this is the bed you will sleep in. You will not sleep on the floor. You will not sleep in the closet. You will sleep in the bed. Come along, here's the bathroom, here's your toothbrush, you will brush your teeth, you will wash your face before you greet the family every day. Come along, here's the kitchen, here's the kitchen table, you will sit in this chair, you will eat when the family eats, you will eat with silverware, you will be part of the system. Bam! Down to come the system on these kids. And of course they would struggle with it a little bit, but after a bit they understood, I think they all understood, that the system was fair and good and produced results for them. And they began to adjust their behavior and mesh into the system. It was predictable, like a week maybe at the outside, sometimes even faster. So when you change the system, say you change the behavior of the people who operate within the system. If you want to get people who are engaged, who are producing at a high rate, change the system. Okay, so why else systematize? Well, if your business is growing rapidly, it allows you to scale the business up and down, because you're not working with the details, you're working with the system. I'll show you this in just a minute. Number two, you can operate effectively with less than superstar people. And what I mean by that is, we all want to get superstars. We understand that, but there are not that many out there. And the likelihood of you building your business on a base of superstar people probably isn't going to happen. The world is full of people, and only 1 out of every 20 is a superstar. Your chances of you getting 1 out of 20 to fill every position is probably not going to happen. So you need to be able to have a system that helps help people who are less than superstars be productive. McDonald's does not find the best people they can find and say, here, you guys figure it out. They don't. They create the system and fit people into the system, and they can make almost anybody effective and productive, because their system is so well defined. So you can operate with less effective you can operate effectively with less than superstar people. You're less reliant on individuals' knowledge. In other words, the knowledge of how this is done, how this business is run, or this piece of the business is no longer just inside somebody's head, an individual's head. So you're not dependent on individuals and their knowledge. The knowledge is transferred from the person to the system. Your evaluations, your annual evaluations are far more objective, because it's really well defined what everybody is to do and not do. Your time is more effectively used. You're not dealing with every crisis that comes up. The system takes care of things. You're free, man. You can absolutely have freedom to do what's important. The system is measurable, and since it is measurable, it's very manageable. So there's some of the reasons why, and I can go on and on with why systematize, but you got the idea. I am reminded of the best manager I ever worked for, Ned Shaheen, said to me one day, Dave said, I do my best work when I'm not needed on a day-to-day basis to function within the business. When I can close the door and nobody enters, I do my best work. When I'm not necessary, that's when I do my best work. And the reason you can do that is because you have a system in place that manages everything, and then you're free to do your best work. So let's get into it. What's a system? Well, here's a couple dictionary definitions. A complex, orderly arrangement of parts. That's one definition. Here's another. A system of principles, processes, principles, rules, processes, and tools. Principles, rules, processes, and tools arranged in an orderly way so as to show a logical plan linking the various parts. And from my own experience, systems are how sophisticated work gets done in every field of human endeavor. Doesn't matter what it is. Anything, any field of human endeavor, if there is an important process that's reproduced over and over again, sooner or later people create a system. It's how good work is done. So, how do you begin? How do you begin to take my advice and systematize your business? Well, understand every aspect of your business can be systematized. So you start out by saying, which ones? What process? Think in terms of processes. So the step one is to identify your processes. Here's 3 criteria to lift a process up to the point where it's worthwhile, it's worth your time and attention. Number 1, it's important. Number 2, it's sophisticated. Number 3, it's reproducible. It's something that happens over and over again. So for example, you might build a new office building and move into it. That's probably a one-time event. It might be important, might be sophisticated, but it's not going to happen over and over again. Probably does not need to be systematized. But if you're in the business of building office buildings, that's your business, then it sure better be systematized. You sure better have checklists and processes and measurements and so on, because it's your business. You see, the criteria is this process important? Is it sophisticated? Is it reproduced? Now, the reason you say it's important is because it's going to take you some time. It's got to be worth your investment of time. It has to be sophisticated. A simple process. If pulling a handle and having a die stamped out of product is probably not that sophisticated. It probably doesn't have to be. That piece doesn't have to be sophisticated. The whole production thing is, though. You see the difference? So here's a list, just where do you start? Well, here's just some things. I mean, this is a typical list of processes people systematize. Sales, again, acquiring a customer, that's a process. It ought to be systematized. Turning a customer into a client, turning a client into a partner. There's 3. I mean, we'll break these down in just a minute, give you some examples. People, what about people? Well, you're going to hire people. You're going to do that on a regular basis. Is that important? Is it reproducible? Is it sophisticated? Yes, 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 yes. So let's create a process, a system to hire people. How about onboarding new employees? That ought to be systematized. How about performance, conference reviews, discipline, bonuses? See, all these pieces, there's a process in place. You just need to systematize that process so it happens by itself over and over again. You don't have to be involved in it. Operations, quoting, production, fulfilling purchase orders, inventory, money. Typically money is the first place to be systematized. Accounts receivable, you probably have a system in place. Accounts payable, probably have a system for, paying things. Monthly statements, report, those probably are already systematized. Now you have to take that same kind of attitude and apply it to everything. So step 1, prioritize the processes. You're always going to work at the most important. You're never going to be done. You're never going to be finished. Probably. You're just going to continue to work at what's most important first. Then decide who should be involved. Gather your team to create and refine and measure and monitor the system. So, you might want different skill sets. You might have executives, a certain group of executives to be involved. Maybe you, maybe somebody else, maybe somebody different on each different system. Be careful about the people who are currently doing the process. So for example, if you got a sales system, you want to put a sales system, you'd like to have the salespeople be involved, but some of them are going to see this as a threat because they recognize that the knowledge is coming out of their heads and getting put into the company, into the system, and as a threat. So you just want to be careful of people who see the system as a threat and want to sabotage it. And then you have to dedicate. These are the first 3 things. You have to dedicate time each week. This is the getting ready. So my recommendation is 4 to 8 hours every week. I mean, lop it off, put it on your calendar. Systems work. 4 to 8 hours every week. It takes that kind of commitment on your part. Then what? Okay. Then one process at a time. Identify a process by the inputs and the outputs. What comes in, what goes out. That puts the boundaries around a system. Answer the question, what's the purpose of this process? Now, let me give you an example here. Again, I'm a sales guy, so I work with sales systems all the time. Here's what I call the big picture sales process. Every company has to do this. Reach into the world of apathy and ignorance. By the way, who lives in the world of apathy and ignorance? People you suspect might one day do business with you. They they don't know you, so they're ignorant of you, and they don't care. I mean, they're apathetic. Now, your job as a system is to reach into the world of apathy and ignorance and identify some suspects. And you can do this all different kinds of ways, but you have to have a list of suspects. And then you do a little research or something, and turn some of them into prospects, and then some of them you turn into customers. Good for you, but you're not done yet. Now you have to turn a customer into a client, and a client into a partner, and that whole thing is the whole sales process. It can be defined by the number of suspects coming in, the number of partners going out. That's a little too big for our purposes, so we're going to break it down. We understand there's three fundamental steps in every sales system: acquiring customers, creating clients, developing partners. So we're going to break it down into those pieces. So we're going to say this piece here is one, this piece is two, this piece is three. So we got three separate processes within the bigger one. You following me? Okay. Now let's just look at this one piece, and I'll use this as an example. If you're going to acquire a customer, what are your inputs? Suspects. Where do you get them? Well, that's your problem. You know, once you define this is the input, then you ask the question, how can I do better at that thing? How can I get more of them? Maybe a website, maybe whatever. Maybe you buy a list. Who knows? Lots of different ways. Your output is customers. So the input and output defines the process. So we're going to create a system that begins with unqualified suspects and ends with customers. What's the purpose? Well, to methodically and predictably create an acceptable number of new customers. See, this is the work. You're doing this work, inputs, outputs, purpose, for every process that you decide to systematize. This is the beginning work. Then what you do is create a flow chart. What does the process look like today? And here's a simple little process. It's not 100% accurate nor 100% complete, but it's a good starting point. So we begin by identifying suspects. That's a specific task. Then we research and qualify and prioritize them. That's another task. Then we reach out and touch them somehow. That's another task. Then we make a first appointment. Then we manage the first meeting. Then we uncover an opportunity. And there could be multiple meetings in here, by the way. We present your solution. We acquire the first order. So that's a very simple step-by-step process of what has to happen to move someone from the input to the output. You with me? All right. So then once we have the process identified, then we identify the key activities. Now, a key activity is a step in the process that is so important that if it doesn't get done, the process just won't complete. And in my process here, I'm going to say let's look at two key activities. Managing the first meeting. Now, in a business-to-business world, if they won't meet with us, they're not going to become a customer. It's just the way it is. Now, in a business-to-consumer world, that's not the case, but in business-to-business, that's pretty much always the case. So you got to manage. You have to have first meeting, and then you have to present your solution. You have to present a proposal. Here's this that we have. Why don't you buy it? That has to happen. If that doesn't happen, they're not going to buy it if they don't know what it is they can buy. So we're just going to say, of all the things here, we're not going to measure everything. We're only going to measure the key things. And these are the key things. So here's what we did. Now we're beginning to build our system. What's the input? What's the output? What's the purpose? What are the key activities? Let's limit it to two. All right. Now let's create some measurements. And again, a simple, fair, objective measurement of the inputs, outputs, and key activities. So let's look at this little simple example and say, how do we do this? Well, inputs. How would we know how many suspects we add to the system every month? Well, you got to have a way. Since it's an input, you got to have a way of measuring it. So maybe you have a sales assistant or sales administrator who gathers the numbers from all the salespeople, or maybe somebody runs the website and pulls the inquiries off the website. Somewhere somebody has to measure the input, and that becomes part of your measurement. Then you say first appointments. How can we measure that? Well, you ought to get a report from the salespeople. If you have a CRM system, it's all in there. You just pull it off every week or every month. If not, then maybe you just require a salesperson to send you an email or something. There's got to be some mechanism to say I had a first meeting with a qualified prospect. This is not with a customer. This is with a prospect. And then quotes. Well, maybe you have a system whereby, as in one of my clients, the sales administrator actually typed up every quote, salesperson delivered it. So if that's the case, then you can have that sales administrator, just note how many quotes were done this month to prospects. Or you can have salespeople tell you. Regardless, you have to measure that. And the outputs, maybe the credit department says, here's the number of new customers we got this month. So inputs, key activities, outputs. We got 4 measurements for this system. That's enough. So with that in place, we can begin. And when I say begin, what I mean is hold a monthly meeting, review the measurements, and refine the system. Every month. Every month, you're going to look at the measurements and you're going to refine the system. So we started just in a real basic way, and now we can continually refine this. So here's the key activities in my example. Suspects into the system. We're going to create a goal, and we're going to keep track of actual. So we're just looking at 4 things. Suspects, that's inputs, customers, outputs. 2 key activities. You see that? So our goal is 100. We actually did 109. Our goal is 10. We actually did 11. Our quotes were 4. We actually did 2. Customers created. We said 1. We got 0. So, we're going to look critically at the system. And we say, is the system doing enough? We're going to look at 2 things, quantity and quality. So first question, is your system doing enough of the right things? We say, yeah, 100, 109, 111. Yeah, it's doing enough. So the quantity, in terms of the quantity of inputs and key activities, looks to be sufficient. So then let's look at the quality. Is your system doing those things well enough? And the way you look at quality is the ratio between the 2 numbers. So we look at, example here, we have first meetings, we wanted 10, and quotes 4. So the ratio between those 2 numbers is a measurement of quality. That's 10 to 4, that's 5 to 2, that's a 40% quality measurement. See that? We actually had 11 to 2, 20%. So in terms of quality, we're not very good at it. So we're going to hone in this month on that one aspect of the system, say, how do we get better at that? And what's the problem? The quantity was acceptable, but the quality wasn't. So we're going to look at that. So we dig deeper. We say, do we have the right prospects? Maybe the numbers are right, but they're just not the right people. Or are the salespeople not trained in how to do this? Or are we using the right tools? Do we need some new collateral or something? How can we get more proposals from the first meetings? Maybe we need to script that sales call. Maybe we need to create a elevator speech. Maybe we need to create some questions to ask in the first sales call. Maybe we need to do that call better. Maybe we just can't expect salespeople to know how to do it when they've never been trained, never been equipped, and never been empowered to do it well. Maybe that's the issue. And I don't know. But every month we look at the quantity and quality and we ask the questions. And every month then we'll have a list of the most important changes you can make and say, you know what we're going to do this month? We're going to script that first call. We're going to get together. We're going to create 5 questions to ask in a first sales call. We're going to create an elevator speech. We're going to role play it. We're going to train the salespeople in doing it. And that's the change we're going to make this month. Okay. Then we're going to measure it again next month. So we have a very good handle on the most important issues in your business. You will see where your weaknesses are. You'll see where your strengths are every month. It will be glaringly obvious. You'll be able to focus your time where it will get the best results. You don't have to do everything, only to do that which is most important. So you're going to take your head and apply it to this issue of best results, this one issue. So you can use this process, this a simple little process, to systematize every area of your business, to gain control of the business, to help average people perform better, to be constantly working at the most important things, to scale your business up and down. Your systems will continue to improve. You'll eventually help everyone perform better. You'll put the right people in the right places. You'll create effective tools. You'll identify and implement the training that will be most. You see, everything you do will be more effective because it's focused and where it will get the best results. You'll have the ability to easily scale up and down. You'll be less stressed and more in control. And that's how you get control of your business. That's how you scale up and down. That's how you respond effectively to a rapidly changing world. Okay? That's it. Bye-bye.